Hello everyone, thank you for joining us again for our special noodle class. We are broadcasting again from Kagawa, Japan, from headquarters of Yamato Manufacturing. So we are doing yakisoba or stir-fried noodles today, and we are very excited to do this class because the yakisoba or stir-fried noodles are something that's really great for takeaway business. Really important topic. We have to talk about during this time. What the pandemic is still going on, right? And this is something, this like noodle dish, like something like really casual, simple, but like, something that, we can dig deeper to make it special and unique. And, something like, maybe like, building to like, your own brand of yakisoba or like stir-fried noodle brand. Because, in fact, like there are many stores that specialize in serving yakisoba like stir-fried noodles in Japan, right? So this is you know, a fact like evidence that this has like some potential to you can make it special, unique. So let's get started. But like allow me to spend a few minutes trying to explain like what we do at Yamato. Okay, so we are manufacturer of noodle making machines. Then we've been in this business like for 45 years, and so we do noodle machines, and we ship them overseas. And but like these noodle machines are designed to produce small scale for restaurants, small factories, fresh noodles from scratch. And we've been also running a noodle school for the past 2 decades and teaching people like how to make noodles, soups, toppings, and everything from scratch. And so, well, we have a lot of people who want to learn, well, basically how to start up their own noodle restaurants, noodle business out of school. And so we have customers using our machines in over 60 countries and more. And we have offices in more different parts of the world. We have 8 offices in Japan, including Tokyo, Osaka, other big cities. We have an office in Korea, Seoul, Korea, and Singapore, Netherlands, the United States. We have partners in different countries as well. And so we are basically a group of noodle making experts who help our customers build their own businesses or through production of like craft noodles, high quality noodles. And so we provide everything like that they need, like from like equipment to training, with whatever like to whatever they need to start their own successful business with noodles. All right, so let's get started today's topic. So the stir-fried noodles. So I'm talking about in this lecture, well, a few things. So like first, what do we need? Like first like what do we need to stir-fry noodles? And what's the purpose? Like what are the benefits? Like we get up like stir-frying. And then what kind of noodles are good for stir-frying? And what we need to care about when making noodles for stir-fry noodles, dishes from scratch, and what's important in making great stir-fry noodles from scratch. And well, we're going to actually make fresh noodles that are for stir-fry noodles on a noodle machine later. And we're moving to the kitchen later on, where our instructor will show us and teach us a few things about, well, prepping the stir-fry noodles. And we're gonna finish it off with the Q&A session. So if you have any questions during the class, please send them in the comments below. So let's get started. So like, why do we stir-fry noodles? And purpose and benefits. Okay, so there are many stir-fry dishes that are specially developed, and popular from Asian cuisines. There are a variety of chopped vegetables, seasoned and stir-fried with certain types of protein, maybe like prawns, like pieces of chicken, thighs, etc., over high intense amount of heat. Stir-frying dishes come with or without carbohydrates, which may be some form of rice or like some types of noodles, which may or may not be like stir fried together with the rest of the ingredients. And I want to ask you this fundamental question, right? Why do we stir fry? What's the power of stir frying, right? Stir frying was said to be initially a cooking method people started using as a way to conserve scarce fuel. So cooking all the ingredients in a short period of time over intense heat, the small amount of oil allows us to save oil and gas using stir frying. But in today's environments, we can probably boil it down to three basic roles stir frying plays. So first one, like developing unique flavor through intense heat and seasoning applied to ingredients. So when stir frying, especially in Chinese cuisine, right, using a special cooking tool like wok and intense heat and movement of constant tossing of ingredients with a certain amount of oil. We also add seasoning to the ingredients during the process. And there's like a special flavor that's called like wok hei, right? That's generated through stir frying in the wok and applying the tossing skills in high temperature on the ingredients. And so basically, like we are adding um, flavor to the ingredients. For instance, heat, the stir frying to the ingredients. That's the first role that it plays. And the second one, like, so we can bring the crispy texture, like to noodles and other ingredients. Stir fry noodles, vegetables, put them with a splash of seasoning in a pan or walk over intensity to give them crisp textures. As the outer surface of the ingredients get burnt, the high temperature takes a lot of moisture from them. By rapidly tossing the ingredients bounce around the wok or pan, hitting the heated areas randomly to get burnt. The smaller the size of ingredients, including noodles, the faster they cook and the crispier they turn. How crispy you want the ingredients to be, including the noodles, determine the size of the ingredients. So if we want to leave some chewiness or softness in the core or center of the ingredients, we want to cut, for example, like vegetables into larger pieces or processed noodles into bigger size, which is thickness and width. For stir-fried noodles, there are different types that offer like different kinds of like textures, but like we at Yamato, right? I probably prefer thick noodles for stir frying because in those noodles they give a special noodle texture like crisp on the outer surface but chewy the inside. The third role stir frying plays is that like it allows us to cook a meal fast. So the stir fry like high heat enables us to apply heat and cook ingredients efficiently. But again, the key is in preparation. So the ingredients should be cut into roughly equal sizes and small sizes. So all the ingredients are done at around the same time. For takeaway items, it would not require great skill tossing of ingredients. So we can just use a regular frying pan or salted pan that we have at home, stir ingredients raw using a spatula or long chopsticks. So we may be able to like offer a stir fry noodle or yakisoba kit and let customers do the stir fry at home. So when takeout noodle items tend to be cold, offering stir fry noodles in your menu may be like great options for customers who prefer hot foods. Okay, so stir fry noodles. Dish. Potential components of stir-fried noodle dishes: noodles, oils or fat, and sauce of like seasoning. Toppings that are like vegetables and protein. And the oil or fat is used to keep the stir-fried surface of or wok or frying pan or like grill non-stick. There are many types of oils and fats that can be used. We should also think about how they change through heating, change properties like health benefits, etc., and use types of oils that we can confidently use and serve to our customers. So what we should consider oil like in stir frying is another thing is just a smoke point where the oil starts burning and smoking after reaching a certain temperature, which varies from type to type. But when oil starts generating smokes, it not only like undermines the oil's flavor and nutrients, um, it also sort of degrades the oil quality, and then it may start like releasing health hazardous materials. So we should pick the ones that work for stir frying, like while keeping much of the good stuff through heating. The main types of oils, fats, um, we can consider as ways to like keep ingredients and noodles from sticking, but healthy ones are, for example, like extra virgin oils, and good ones to use in stir frying are sesame oils because they have higher small point. Same oils, for example, 175 degrees Celsius, olive oil around 160 degrees Celsius. Um, so like through heating, like rises of temperature, the properties of like oil, like each of these oils like may change. So we need to kind of like do some studies on this to see like which oil will be like healthier, which will be like has like some can carry like a good nutrients for our customers. So depending on which oil to use, which kind of flavor we get bringing to our stir fry noodle dish will be different. So we should think about kind of flavors we want our customers to experience on a noodle dish. So another thing we should remember, like considering the small point of oils we use, we need to be done with the cooking as quickly as we can, so we can keep the temperature relatively low, not to bring the oil to smoke point. For that, we need to prep, for example, like vegetables again, by cutting them into small pieces of equal sizes, and that prevents uneven cooking and then allows us to cook them faster. Right, so what should we care about like when making noodles great for stir frying? So when it comes to stir frying noodles, we mainly care about one thing, to the final noodle texture our customers experience when they bite into the noodles. So when it comes to stir frying noodles or yakisoba, there are basically like two ways of prepping fresh noodles before you start stir frying them. And so the first method, like we actually did like in the previous class, way back, that's boiling. And so boiling is still very straightforward. Like we cook fresh noodles to a certain point, enough to um, like long enough, like in a high temperature that's high enough to allow generalization to happen. And we need to like remove the material currency we put as ingredients for the noodles out. And then like strain the water out with the noodles and apply some oils and start stir frying noodles. So this is method A. Another way is to steam fresh noodles first to a certain point, and then we boil the noodles and start stir frying them. This is method B. And this method is actually more conventional for prepping stir fry noodles or yakisoba. And there's some differences and merits, like in demerits of like each method. Like, for example, like noodle textures. Noodles like prepped in method A like are soft and chewy, and noodles prepared like in method B are less chewy or like sticky, like but stiff, kind of stiff texture. Then maybe, well, this kind of, how to describe it, like this texture maybe like more like kind of dry pasta, like that's kind of, yeah. And cooking time, so the noodles, they like, of course, like it's longer because you have to cook, I mean, not like from fresh noodles state. Um, Noodles prepped in B, the cooking time is shorter because like noodles are somewhat cooked in the steaming process first, and then we boil it, right? So if if you like we use these types of noodles for takeout items, this method, like noodles prepared in this method, may be better for customers like who want to spend less time cooking at home. Either way, it's like relatively easy to perform in a restaurant kitchen environment or even a private kitchen, and it's up to us to take on which method to do. Both methods offer different benefits and noodle textures, depending on what our customers want and whether we are serving it in dining business, takeout or retail, or like such a noodle kit. For dining business, like I think it depends on customer's preference, noodle texture, going for softer, chewier texture with noodle A, or taking stiff or firm texture with noodle B. For takeout items, either type of noodles should be okay, but like for a noodle kit, like which assumes our customers do certain preps at home, including boiling and stir frying. If our customers prefer less time on cooking or boiling time, noodle B may be a better choice. To get the right noodle textures our customers do love, you have to take all these variables into account as well as the final noodle texture turns after stir frying. Okay, so what do we have to, what's important, right, in making good stir-fried noodles from scratch? So we're gonna make stir-fried noodles today, stir-fried noodles, aka yakisoba in Japanese. And so this is the chart that what we've been used like in the previous classes. That like this is this chart describes different types of noodle textures in terms of protein content of flour that's used to make these noodles, and or moisture content, like how much water we are adding to the flour to make this dough, and the noodle sizes. So noodle size, like basically thinner the noodle size, the smaller noodle size, softer, right? Because like there's less bite to it, but like um, for stir-fried noodles, we think that like it has to have, well, it should have, well, certain bite to it. Like, when we want the customers to feel some bite, right? When they, yeah, that like some resistance, if you will, like, when they bite into the noodles. So we want to have like certain firmness. So by like, well, using a flour that has like higher protein content, which makes the noodles harder. And you want we want to make it like a little chewy. So we want to add a bit of hydration, like water, liquid, to make it chewy, like a bit softer but chewy. And um, we want to, because to have like to give it more of a bite, right? We want to make it thicker, right? Want to make it thicker. So I think what we think that's like the stir fry noodles, like kind of like, well, is like should be probably positioned around here, like in this chart. And so noodle recipe construction, right? Like these are the things like we should think about when constructing the structuring the noodle texture, make it hard, make it soft, chewy. The ingredients, ingredients specifically we are talking about like wheat flour. So protein or wheat content, the wheat flour, like whether it's high or low, higher, harder. The hydration, they make it hard, like lower the hydration ratio, and noodle size, thinner, uh, was like softer, less bite. The serving size, okay, and we can also think about like, so we can think about like these variables that affect the final noodle textures that our customers experience, like because noodles go through stir frying, which gives noodles crispy surface, which is perceived hard. You may want to go for a softer texture, like I talked about the kind of like ideal noodle texture for stir fry noodles. So um, we think that like so that's soft or chewy inside, but like crispy outside. So for that to happen, like we recommend going for larger noodle size, which is width and thickness. Noodles that are thick but soft and chewy inside, but like crispy outside, should give our customers satisfying sensations every time like they bite into the noodles. Basically, we're looking at these five variables like protein content, like viscosity of like wheat flour, hydration, noodle size, and serving style. or serve like cold or hot, but like in this case, like for like it's hot meal. We can definitely control these vegetable variables to bring out the ideal noodle texture in your noodles. So noodle textures like when cooked, so like when the noodles steamed, boiled, so the outer surface are like chewy, but like the core like surface is firm. And same thing happening after we cook them or steam them, like cook the noodles and like we stir fry them. So the outer surface is crispy. So that's something like we need to consider when we are making noodles for stir fry noodles. And so from this point, like I'm gonna talk about like method, production method. So I've been talking about this method like in the previous classes, but like we basically have to first make a foundation, strong foundation for the um, great noodle texture. So of course, like we have to weigh all the ingredients, the right ratios meaning, you know, like ingredients, well, being like water, flour, and kansi, and then some other ingredients, probably like salt, and then other things at the right ratios. Right ratios meaning like the percentages. Like so, if these percentages like don't change. Like if you change the batch size, for example, if you're doing like 5 kilograms or like 10 kilograms, these ratios don't change. Basically, to get the same quality over and over. So as long as we weigh it, like weighing means in grams, like in pounds. Um, we measure them by weight, not by volume, so that we can be precise and we can be consistent in the quality of the products that we produce every time. And after that, like we mix them, like so we make dough, right? And then we rest it to sort of like well promote the good resting process, we call it, like first one. Um, and we do the broth formula combining, and so these are the process like we're gonna go through later, like when we actually make noodles on a noodle machine. And after that, after like we make like strong foundation, which is dough. So all we have to do is just thin it. We just like making the dough into the proper size, like thickness, and then you're gonna cut it and portion it, right? And after we make them into like noodle strands, like shapes of noodles, we may do another resting process called like third resting process. Like so, what we do is that like we put them in the fridge, maybe like set at like 10 degrees Celsius, and the noodles lose moisture, and that this process like allows the noodles to have like kind of like become like kind of tighter in noodle texture and comes kind of like translucent in color. And because this is a stir frying noodles, method, remember like method B, so we steam them and boil them. Or method A, we just boil them and we stir fry them. And when cooking noodles, well, we need to um, get the noodles gelatinized. Gelatinized. The gelatinization, like I talked about, like in the previous class. So if you are interested in like what it is, like how it works, like please check our previous class recording. And so basically, we need to cook them to gelatinization, and that happen like we have to have like certain temperature, high temperature, and enough amount of water. And so basically during this, what started noodles like take up liquid and swell upon heating and become like kind of clear gel-like texture that you maybe would like see in that image. So we're gonna use noodle machine, particularly ramen machine, to make stir fry noodles, and then this is how it works. And then so this is a set of rollers, and then we're gonna sheet the noodle dough, and then after it's gone through a certain thickness, that gets inserted into this kind of cutter, like kind of called slither cutter, which has these grooves. Each of these grooves is like fixed in certain width. So the thickness is determined by roller gap, but the width is determined by this cutter that we use. So well, you can make different thickness, different width, and different sizes, different shapes. But like for stir fried noodles, it's basically kind of rectangular shape, basically, or like square. All right, so let's get started on the production, the stir fried noodles. So we have all the ingredients here. So this is a flour that we usually use this type of flour like for ramen noodle to make ramen noodles. So that protein content is like around like 11%, relatively hard, like really high. And this is a whole egg powder, so like eggs in powder form. Um, in Japan, like people are afraid of like well getting infected with the salmonella virus, so like we don't normally use like fresh eggs, but like we can definitely use fresh eggs as well. And these are liquid ingredients, so salt, kansi, water. So these are all the ingredients we need to make stir fry noodles. All right, so let's get started. So this machine is uh, we call it Richmond one machine, and particularly this one is certified for C. It has C mark on it, so we can. Oh, sorry, she forgot to put the whole egg powder in it. So we put like all the solids in there, like and then like some mixing, and then so this machine is like certified with C, so it's ready to be used in EU countries where CE mark is required. And it has this 10 kilograms mixer, so you can mix up like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients up to, so like that's maximum. And then minimum batch is 4 kilograms in this mixer. And so while it's mixing only the solid ingredients, she's dissolving like salt and constantly into the water to make this solution. So you need to like kind of mix it like thoroughly to make sure that like all the ingredients are dissolved in the water thoroughly. All right, so after that, she adds around like 2/3 of the water into the mixer, and as you can see that as you can see, like she added the water liquid directly onto the mixer lid that has these small holes, and that allow these small holes like allow the liquid to be dripped through to the flour a little by little, so that or to ensure good hydration of flour. So the purpose of mixing is good hydration. It's like we are trying to distribute like equal amount of water liquid onto each particle of the flour Um, so equally, it's like the liquid like is equally distributed throughout the dough. Um, and it's well, as much as it is fun to keep watching the mixer, it's well, we can probably just like spend like 10 minutes just watching it. So she prepared the dough in advance, the same recipe. So this recipe is like hydration ratio is like 34%, 34% hydration ratio. That means 34% the weight of flour, and inside 34% of hydration liquid, there's a 1% of salt, 1% of salt, which is like 1% of the weight of flour, and 1% of constantly in it. So as you saw, like she dissolved like all these constantly and salt into the water, right? So the 2% of them, and 2% of the 34% is constantly and salt. So that's sort of like how you need to calculate all these ingredients amount, each of these amount, um, and then put in the recipe. So first process that she's doing is we call like rough forming of dough sheet. So we basically like making like rough sheet of dough through a set of rollers that's set to a certain thickness, certain roller gap. So we can set the roller gap to like 1/10 of like millimeter, um, easily like with just one hand. And so every time like we sheet the dough, we change the roller gap. So like so she's just like keeps feeding it till she runs out the dough, and to make a rough sheet of dough first. And really, I mean, yakisoba noodles or like stir-fry noodles like are very popular, very very popular in Japan, and because it's very casual. Or like you know, or you can probably find stir-fry noodles like yakisoba like in both like some Asian cuisine restaurants, but like also um, some like small like kind of food stand like on the streets, of course, and you can find it like in some small like food stalls, like some festivals, and like that's very casual, like fast food, like casual, but and then on the other hand, like well, they're like well restaurants or like small shops that like actually specialize in serving yakisoba, or like stir-fried noodles, and then there are some other kind of similar cuisines like restaurants that serves like well, okonomiyaki, which is like Japanese pancakes, and yakisoba. It's like they're all made from it's like the same thing, like the flour, the wheat flour. So usually, well, depending on like customer preference, they yeah, they order like okonomiyaki or like yakisoba, and then they usually have this like huge grill in front of customers, and they like stir fry like and then cook them in front of customers. So that's a bit kind of entertaining for customers as well. And then the foods are kept warm or hot on that grill. So after the first process we call rough forming, and we do this process like we call combining. Basically, we are separating this one sheet dough into like two separate sheets, and then combining them together through a roll, a set of rollers, and to make it firm, make it stronger, firm, and so the first round of sheeting, like we set that roller gap to like 1.5 millimeter, and second round, like when we combine them, we set that roller gap to like 2 millimeter, and because like that was like 1.5 millimeter previously, so each sheet should be 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and combining together, combine two separate sheets together, like that's 1.5, 1 plus 1.5, like that's 3 millimeter equivalent of thickness that's going through the roller. So, and we could keep the roll gap to like 1.5, but like that's too drastic, and that's too thin for 3 millimeter roll door sheet. So that's gonna damage the like gluten structure like kind of being developed inside dough. So we want to apply this rule of like 30% reduction rule. So every round of sheeting, we reduce the roller gap just by 30% from the previous roller gap to keep the gluten structure um, not not well damaged. Right, so that's a combined process, but that's uh, that's the first one. That's the first round of combined process, and then we want to do it twice usually, one to twice, um, to make sure that the dough is firm, strong, and ready to enjoy like all these steaming and cooking, like boiling and like stir frying that it has to go through later. So basically, the dough needs to be strong, so we have to make sure that it's strong. So like we do this combining process twice. So the previous roll gap was 2 millimeter, right? And we separated it into two sheets, and then again, like we are combining them to one, like 2 plus 2, 4. And I think you already know the answer, but like we reduce the thickness by like 30%. So 30% of like 4 millimeter, that's 1.2, and it's like 4 minus 1.2, like 2.8. But like just to make it simple, like we round it up to 3 millimeter. So now the roller gap is 3 millimeter. So as you maybe like notice, this machine is now doing two processes at this simultaneously. So mixer is like mixing the dough, right? And then roller unit is sheeting the dough at the same time. Because like there are two separate motors, and so you can do it you can do them at the same time. And there's another motor that um, kind of drives the another function of this machine. It's called like portioning cutter. Portioning cutter like that, or cuts the noodles into portion, like one serving and one serving, automatically. And well, yeah, I forgot that like there's another motor that's for the uh, automatic duster. That's that's actually running right now. So we need to dust the dough, right, to prevent it from sticking. So up to combining process, like we want these separate sheets of dough like stick together, but from this point on, we want to keep it from sticking. So we start dusting. And this automatic dust, like you can adjust the dusting volume, the wetter the noodles, wetter the dough, the more you should dust. So, and that's the buzzer of the mixer, and that let you know that like the mixing is done, and it's just automatically stops. And so like after second combined process, like we only had to just thin it to the final thickness. So the previous roll gap was like 3 millimeter. So we use the rule of like 30% reduction. So um, yeah, so we just like so we the point is like we gradually thin it, and then to make sure that like the gluten structure is like kept intact. All right, and then so we start speeding up the roller speed. So we want to go faster from this point on. And so you can adjust the roller speed, this volume. It's pretty simple and easy. Right, so that was a thing, and then like we want to measure the actual thickness of the dough after it's going through roller gap like 1.5 millimeter. It's now like 2.2-ish millimeter. So like there's a difference of like 0.7. So the actual thickness is always bigger because the dough bounces back like after it's going through the roller gap. So you need to, I mean, we need to like measure the actual thickness before we start cutting it. And um, so that was like difference of like 0.7 millimeter in thickness. So the actual thickness between actual thickness and the roller gap we set. Um, so we can expect that thickness to bounce back right by 0.7 millimeter after it's going through the roller, right? And then we use this kind of cutter. It's kind of like a paper shredder, right? So like that noodle dough sheet like gets inserted to this kind of cutter and then comes out as noodles, shrimp. So we just put it in the machine, secure it, and want to bring in this conveyor belt and set it up. And number 18 cutter is 1.7 millimeter in width, and then you want to make it like kind of like rectangular shape. So the final thickness that we are aiming at is 1.5 millimeter. It's 1.5 millimeter, right? So remember, like that we expect the dough to bounce back by 0.7. So if we set that roller gap at 0.8, right, and then we can expect that actual thickness to bounce back by 0.7. So 0.8 plus 0.7, that's a bounce back ratio. Like so, that's 2.8 plus 2.7, that's 1.5. So we can expect that noodle to come out, the thickness noodle to come out to be 1.7, I mean 1.5. If we set that roller gap to 0.8, right, so the noodles are coming out, and the other thing you can do with this machine is you can control the serving size easily by changing the length of noodles in this volume. So you can make it shorter to you can make it longer to have bigger serving size. You can make it shorter to have small serving size. It's really up to you. It's really, I mean, if you have like customers like who prefer, you have a lot of like male customers like and then you may wanna make a bigger serving So eventually, like that's longer. See, that's just probably too long. You know, it's maybe too long, but like because this cost of making noodles, right, is very low. It's like you saw the ingredients, right? So like wheat flour, water, and some currency and salt. So cost of making one serving noodle is very pretty low, like maybe like 10 cents to probably like 25 cents, like including the labor. So making the portion size a little bit bigger, I mean, it wouldn't add much to the your your production cost. So you may want to sort of like, well, give your customers extra, right? Maybe extra serving, like additional serving, right? As free of charge to, keep your customers like coming back for more and keep your customer loyal to your business. So, yeah, so serving size, like changing serving size for bigger portions, maybe a way to like kind of like keep your customers happy and come back to your business. Um, repeatedly come back to business. Right, so that's how we can make, well, yakisoba, like stir-fried noodles from scratch, right? Even though we use our noodle machine, the process is the same. If you use like some other different noodle machines, um, and the recipe is the same. So yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so let's move. So let's move to our kitchen. So this is our headquarters, and so we have this the showroom and slash like kind of like classroom or like demo room, like where we teach our customers how to make noodles, and we also have a kitchen because like this is where we conduct our school, ramen, udon, and soba noodles, soba cuisines. So we have everything here. Then we have similar facility at our Tokyo office, and we teach school there too. And we have another facility, well, it's like kind of small scale, but like we have school in Singapore as well. But yeah, but like it's been difficult to conduct classes there because of the situation with the pandemic. I mean, COVID-19. But so this is how the dough is made, like after like 10 minutes of mixing, and again like the hydration ratio like 34%. So it's yeah, so it's a like kind of medium sort of like hydration in terms of like noodle hydration range. So we can do like between like maybe 25% it's like low hydration ratio, and then like that's for like kind of a famous Hakata style noodles like Ippudo, kind of Ichiran ramen. That's very famous ramen shop brand. And so medium, well, goes like yakisoba, like stir fry noodles, and of course like you know all kinds of like ramen noodles, like Sapporo miso ramen noodles, and like kind of Tokyo shoyu ramen noodles. Which, by the way, like the next class, like next week, the next Thursday, like we are doing a class on um, fundamentals of ramen. So please sign up if you're interested in. And there's hydration ratio noodles, which we did some class previously. And so if you're interested in, please check the recordings of this class on our YouTube channel. And we have like a bunch of other videos, the recordings of like our our previous classes. So please check our YouTube channel for the recordings. And we're gonna be like churning out like more of these classes, like more of like um, videos that are like very useful, um, packed with like all these information that that may help your businesses. So please subscribe to our channel if you haven't. Right, so this is our kitchen, and as well like we conduct our classes, like teach. As well like all these like cooking happens, and then we have like all these equipment that allow us to like do all these like cooking, like heavy cooking. So was like heavy cooking, like I'm talking about like well tonkotsu, like production of tonkotsu broth, like pork bone broth, for that like thick one. That would require like high powered like heating equipment like this one, like induction cooker, like big one, right? And we need to like cook them like for 10 hours from scratch. And we also have like tare, like 30, 40, 50 different types of tare. We make them from scratch, flavored oils. It's one of the ramen soup component, which I'm going to talk about in next class next week, next Thursday. So yeah, I'm going to get into the details like um, ramen fundamentals next class. So please stay tuned. So we have our chief instructor, our Noodle School, Yamato Noodle School, Mr. Ikeda, and we're very, very lucky to have him like teach us stir-fried noodles today. And he has a background in Chinese cuisine, so he's great. He has a lot of shelves like inner shelf, like he does like he has a lot of drawers, he can share with us. Um, and so it's very lucky to have him. He just did like on the eczema, stir-fried noodles. Give me a second, thank you. All right, so let's get started.
はい。そしてこちらですね。まずこちらが生麺で、こちらが蒸したものですね。
So first off, like we wanna talk about these noodles. So the right one is fresh noodles, and on the left that's the steamed noodles. Fresh noodles being having steamed.
はい。では実際に蒸していきますね。
Okay, so let's start steaming them.
でこのままでは火が絶対に均一に入らないので、ほぐします。
So we need to actually kind of like untangle the noodles and like kind of spread them around to make sure that like all these each like noodle strand gets the steaming.
でそのまま、5分ほどですね、蒸していきます。
And you start steaming like and then maybe like steaming it for 5 minutes
で5分蒸したも
on
のが
medium
先ほ
heat.
どお見せしたこちらですね。
So after we steam like the noodles turn like this.
はい。で実際に2つを茹でて、茹で上がりの状態をちょっと見ていただこうと思います。
And then we're gonna cook them both and let you guys see how different they are after cooking.
両方とも1分半ですね、入れていきます。
So we'll cook them like for 1.5 minutes. No problem.
こちらがですね、茹で時間とか生麺の違いなんですけども、こちらが生ですね。
So that's fresh noodles,
はい。
right?
で、これが2分蒸したものですね。
And then that's the same noodle like being steamed like for 2 minutes.
こちらが5分。
And then that's 5 minutes steaming.
こちら10分。
And then 10 minutes steaming.
で同じ麺でも蒸し時間でだいぶ仕上がりが変わってきます。
So the same noodles, but like they vary. They become like kind of look different. Like from when you steam like for different times.
時間が長くなるにつれて、色とか風味、あとは食感ですね。比較的強くなる傾向になります。
So the longer we steam, like the maybe the stronger the flavor, and then like the darker the color become like, and then the texture be like a bit different too.
今回は5分ですね。もうこの間のものを使って料理の方が作ります。
So today's class we're just going to use this the ones that like we steamed like for 5 minutes, and then like we're gonna prepare like some dish.
じゃあもうすぐどんどん茹で上がりますね。はい、
Okay, so noodles are done. Okay, so that's fresh, and this is steamed.
麺のグラムも同じなんですけども、こちらの方がこうちょっと沈んでる感じですね。こちらがちょっとふわっとした感じ。
So the same serving size, but like as you can see, like well, the the one that we steamed, like it was kind of spread out, kind of.
こっちは時間を置くとちょっとくっつくんですけども、こちらは時間を置いても比較的こうさらっとした状態になる。
So comparing with these two, like the one we just cooked, like we just boiled, like without steaming, like they kind of start sticking together, like after a while. But like the one we steamed, they kind of like stay relatively like kind of stuck together.
まだしばらく置いておいて最後にまた冷えた時に見ていただけます。
Okay, so like I'm just gonna leave them like for a while until they like see how they change over time.
では、今回ですね、この麺を使って作る料理なんですけども、こちらですね。
So today, what I make using these noodles, like I'm gonna make this
こち
dish.
らはもう普通の焼きそばですね。一般
So,
的な焼きそば。
so this is like kind of like regular type, like we call like yakisoba in Japan.
まあ、具材は何でも結構ですけども、まあ、ソースですね。ソースなどロードのこういうソースですね。こちらを使います。
And you can pretty much use like any kind of ingredients that you can stir fry with like but what I have to like point out is this sauce that we usually add to yakisoba, this thick sauce.
でもう一品がですね、まあ、パリッと両面焼いた、麺の上に青のけのあんかけ焼きそばなんですけども、今日は麻婆あんかけですね。麻婆焼きそばみたいなのをちょっと作っていきたいと思います。
Okay, so another dish that I'm gonna make is that like gonna kind of like burn the kind of well the noodles and then gonna make us like a sauce that kind of resembles the kind of mapo tofu. So look, so that's what I'm gonna make for another dish.
はい。では、まあ、今ちょうど5分ほど経つので、麺の方ですね。仕上がったものを。
Okay, let's see how the noodles like we're steaming for 5 minutes turn.
はい。先ほどの生麺と比べてこのように変わる。
So see like how the color changed after 5 minutes of steaming. And see the texture, like just kind of got stuck, a bit stiff, a little bit.
粗熱が取れたら冷蔵庫で保存していただければ結構です。
So once they like kind of cool down, like you can keep them in the fridge.
はい。では、焼きそば、普通の焼きそばからね、仕上げていきます。
Okay, so I'm gonna start with yakisoba.
はい。では、麺の方をですね、先に入れていきます。
Okay, so first I'm gonna cook the noodles, boil the noodles first.
じゃあ麺を入れていきます。はい。で、5分蒸した麺ですね。5分蒸した麺を1分半ほど入れていきます。
So I'm gonna use the one that we steamed for 5 minutes and start cooking it, boiling it, and
入れ
cook.
ている間に、はい、野菜の方など炒めていきます。
Okay, so like while we are boiling the noodles, I'm gonna start stir frying the vegetables and the ingredients.
フライパンの方に少し油を入れてですね、今回豚バラ肉を使ってます。
So I put a bit of oil and then is a pork. So slice of pork meat and then I'm gonna so stir frying and then like kind of getting the oils out first. from the meat.
で少し焦げ色をつけて、まあ、香りですね、香ばしい香りをちょっと出します。
So I'm gonna stir fry them like and then like get that like burn them a little bit, and then get some flavor from the meat onto the oil.
はい。あと炒めたところに野菜ですね。はい。ちょっとニラは色変わりやすいので、最後に。
And I'm gonna add cabbage, bean
そうで
sprouts,
すね。はい。ちょっとこのまま置いときます。で、次ですね、麺が茹で上がったらこちらの方に入れていきます。
Right, so like I'm just gonna leave them for a while until they're cooked.
麺が茹で上がったら入れます。
Okay, so the noodles are done.
ちょっと使いますね。
Right, so after the noodles down, like I'm gonna add them to the pan and start stir frying them
はい、ちょっと混ぜ合わせます。
and mix them together.
ただですね、ニラとソースを入れて和えます。
And I'm gonna add like Chinese chives, then add sauce. And this is basically done.
皿に持っていきます。
And I'm gonna plate it. And to finish, I'm gonna do like I would like dry seaweed, like powdered seaweed, and then add like shredded bonito on top, bonito flakes.
なんか横に添えられるそうですね。はい。
And pickled ginger. It's kind of typical that we add like pickled ginger like at the side of the yakisoba.
で、
And so that's it's a typical like yakisoba dish that like we see like in the as a casual like a fast food. So next,
次は麻婆焼きそばの方を作っていきます。はい。
and I'm gonna make next time I'm gonna make like mapo yakisoba, that's stir fried noodles.
ちょっと鍋少し熱しておきます。
And I'm gonna heat up the pans first.
で、麺の方はですね、まず同じように1分半ほど茹でていきます。
And for the noodles, like I'm gonna cook them first. So again, like 1.5 minutes.
その間にですね、
And so while they're cooking,
材料の
I'm gonna start cooking the ingredients.
で麺はですね、茹で上がったらこちらのフライパンで、両面をこんがり焼いていきます。
So like once the noodles done, like I'm gonna put them in the frying pan and like I'm gonna burn the outside, surfaces,
ちょっと揚げるように焼くので、少し油は多めです。
and it's gonna be like a kind of bit like a bit deep frying. So I add a relatively um, good amount of like oils.
こちらはですね、油を敷いたところで豚ひき肉ですね、炒めていき
And
ます。
then in this pan, like I'm adding like pork ground beef. I mean, sorry, like ground pork meat.
ひき肉に火が通りましたら、調味料で味をつけていきます。
So once they are cooked, I'm gonna start adding the seasoning. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for a while, like, and then I'm gonna take the noodles out and make sure to strain the water out like as much as we can.
すぐ切ったものを、フライパンにそのまま入れて焼いていきます。
So as I strain the water out, I'm gonna put them in the frying pan and like start like start grilling the noodles. And we talked about no, we talked about crispness, like adding crispness to this like noodles, like noodle texture, and like this is one of the ways like we can do like um, getting a lot of like medium like very crispy.
中火ぐらいでじっくり焼いていきます。
And you can probably like put in the medium heat and like
焼いてる間にこちらの
and
続きですね。
while we do the noodles in the pan, we continue on with the sauce.
今ここがこう濁っていると思うんですけども、これが。
And you can see that there's a kind of like diluted so like water liquid,
これがちょっと透き通るまでですね。
and we want to cook it like to the point where the liquid starts turning clear. From the cloudy liquid. See, it's
透明
turning
感が出てきたら OK です。
turning clear, right? From the cloudy liquid, right?
ここに調味料を入れていきます。
All right, let's start adding the seasoning.
今回入れるのはですね、甜麺ですね、甘味噌ですね。
That's sweet miso, like sweet Chinese miso paste.
次ですね、紹興酒、中国のお酒ですね。紹興酒。
This is a Chinese sake.
あと醤油ですね、濃口醤油。
This is soy sauce, like dark soy sauce.
炒めていきます。
Then just gonna
最初はこのように汁が多いんですけども、それがなくなるまで炒めていきます。
get salty, stir fry like, and then until the liquid is gone. So the like liquid is like kind of absorbed by into the meat.
透き通った茶色ですけど、透き通った油が出るような状態
See
で
that
すね。
like the liquid is brown, but like still like clear, right?
で、色は変わりです。
Then so this is the meat. How the meat is done.
お店などではここで炒めた状態で、置いといていただければ大丈夫です。
And like, well, when you do this like in a shop, you can just leave the this is how the meat is prepped.
で、麺の方は、はい、反対側から色ついたので、それがいきます。
And for the noodles, we want to flip it over after that the noodles like turn like brown.
同じように焼いていきます。ではですね、この油ですね、油がいっぱい出るんですけど、こちらで薬味を炒めていきます。
And you see this the clear liquid like that's oil like that. So that's what I use to so cooking the vegetables.
で、ニンニクですね。
That's garlic.
あとは豆板醤ですね。
This is kind of
唐辛
like
子に
this is like kind of chili paste from China. Like this is a kind of like typical Chinese seasoning that we have like
あと今日は
then
トチジャンっていうトチですね。トチ。
tochi um, another seasoning that like that's from China from tochi
今日はまあこういうペーストになったものですけ
and
ど、
then
粒のものがあればそれを使っていただければ結構。
well this is a like kind of home paste but like if you can find the one with kind of like from like beans you can use that too
で、これをこの油で炒めていきます。ちょっと少ないのでいただきます。
okay, I just want to like add a little bit of oil because the fat was like just too little
炒めていくと油がラー油みたいに高くなっていきます。
and as we like stir fry it on it comes kind of like start turning like to like kind of chili paste see the red color
そうしましたら、豆腐ですね、を入れていきます。
gonna add tofu into it
あとお酒ですね。お酒を少し。
and then a bit of like Chinese sake that we
こ
used
ちらに酢ですね。はい。
then that's a broth
まあ鶏ガラベースですね。
chicken broth
で一度かけたら味を見て、足りなければ醤油などで味を整えます。
and I'm gonna bring it to bowl and then taste it and then if if I feel like I need like some more seasoning like I'm gonna add more or soy sauce
で、麺の方ですね、どちらもきれいに色がつきましたので、取り出して油を切っておきます。
so we got like pretty good color on the noodles so I'm gonna take it out to kind of strain the oil
では味を見て、味を
okay let me taste it
味付けは基本的に醤油だけですね。
and well, what I use is just a soy sauce for the seasoning
はい。では味が整いましたの
Okay,
で、醤油を
so
つけていきます。
that's done. And then lastly, like I wanna make it kind of
そうです
viscous.
ね。
So what I use is the like starch that's diluted in water.
あとネギも一緒に入れておきます。
And at the same time, I'm gonna add like chopped up green onions.
では、溶いた片栗粉ですね。入れながら入れていきます。
The starch like diluted water to make it viscous. And I want to make it like kind of like relatively thick. So add that kind of starchy water.
で、最後少し強火にして、そこをですね、こう揺すりながら少し焼きます。
And at the last minute, like I want to heat up. I want to put on the high heat to so like to get that kind of bottom kind of burnt.
最後ラー油ですね。
And then this is chili oil. Last. make it spicy. And so this is done.
出来上がりました。では、盛り付けしていきます。
Okay, so I'm gonna plate it. So first I just plate the noodles.
豆腐ですね。
And I'm gonna pour the sauce over it. And I'm gonna sprinkle the citron pepper.
はい、完成です。
So that's done. So it's very spicy, and then well, like noodles, as we talk about, like, well, I think like when it comes to like stir fry noodles, the we think that the best ideal like noodle texture is like crispy outside and soft and chewy inside. So especially this one, like it's very crispy outside and chewy inside. So it's the ideal noodle texture for stir fried noodle dish. The difference after like we let them for a while. See, like the ones that we just boiled, right? Like they're all stuck together. But like the one we like steamed and boiled, they're relatively like kind of well unstuck, right? So so I got another question like how long can a steamed noodles store in the fridge? See, this is something like we need to get back to you because like we haven't really tested it. This is kind of like or like our first time like doing the steamed noodles. So there are some tests like we need to do to be able to like answer your question. Um, but like before we boil them, like like for the fresh noodles, um, because of the well quantity that we use, they last at least like for 1 week, like when we refrigerate them. So um, yeah, let me do that. Oh, well, another question: will it prolong the ramen shelf life if we steam? Like, oh, this is a kind of same question. Again, like we need to do testing. Um, yeah, to be able to like answer your question. So let us get back to it. We'll do a series of tests, and then to be able to answer this question. But thank you very much for the question, and that's one of the things like we are also wondering. So we're gonna conduct some tests to be able to answer your question. And if you like this class, like please hit the like button and. Well, I hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.